This is week 153 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv, and I'll be taking you through the top stories from Ukraine this week. The commander of the 155th Mechanized Brigade, known as Anne of Kyiv, was taken into custody this week on the accusation that he did not respond to violations in his unit, including the unauthorized abandonment of the military unit by his fighters. The story of the 155th has been one of the largest PR nightmares for Ukraine's armed forces since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. The brigade was formed last year as a flagship project to show how other countries can train and equip new Ukrainian soldiers. Largely made up of freshly mobilized, inexperienced soldiers, the brigade suffered issues from the start, with many stalls and setbacks that compounded over time, as members of the brigade reportedly deserted their posts by the hundreds, amid claims of poor leadership. The commander of the 155th is suspected of abuse of power. He was taken into custody on a $2 million bail, as the investigation is ongoing. Because a portion of the brigade had undergone training in France and had been given equipment by France, the scandal cast doubt on future cooperation with Western partners. Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrski said on Thursday that the 155th's capabilities are improving with the support that they've been given in the wake of the scandal. He said that the lessons learned from the debacle are helping to inform decision-making going forward. The 155th isn't the only unit whose leadership is currently under intense scrutiny. The 78th Air Assault Regiment announced on Tuesday that they're launching an internal investigation after one soldier took to Facebook to allege that unreasonable levels of overwork were leading to exhaustion among his comrades, which in turn was leading to fatal accidents when handling explosives. The soldier, Vitaly Holovnya, didn't name the platoon commander responsible, but he told the Kyiv Independent that men were being forced to work around the clock, sometimes doing the same task day in and day out, causing careless mistakes in safety protocol. According to the soldier, casualties caused by exhaustion-induced accidents were listed as battlefield losses. Holovnya also alleged that the unnamed commander kept favorites among his men and arranged for them to receive combat compensation without actually having to be deployed in combat, which is obviously a huge blow to the morale of peers who actually go on combat missions. The internal investigation was launched this week after Holovnya's Facebook post, and leadership has implored the public to not jump to conclusions without offering any further information. Although not all cases reach the public eye, it is well known that both the issues of mismanagement and favoritism are commonplace in the Ukrainian army. Many of these practices are the products of the Soviet military culture that Ukraine inherited from the USSR and never properly reformed. Commanders of new progressive Ukrainian brigades have repeatedly called for changes that could rid Ukraine's armed forces of the systemic issues that often lead to unnecessary losses and a decrease in soldiers' morale. It has been said many times, but there's no better way to put it. If Ukraine wants to have a chance of winning in Russia's war, it can't hope that its small Soviet army will defeat Russia's bigger Soviet army. The Kyiv Independent's War Crimes Investigations Unit presented its new documentary, Curated Theft, on Thursday. The film investigates a major theft of art from two museums in Kherson during the 2022 Russian occupation, and the difficulties in locating the art now and seeking justice against those who orchestrated the crime. The documentary will be linked in the description below. Check it out. US President Donald Trump has been back in office for 1 week. As predicted, he has not ended the war. He hasn't met with either Vladimir Putin or Volodymyr Zelensky, but says plans are underway to set up talks with both. Putin is clearly the priority. Trump has said that he wants to discuss an end to the war with him within days. Ukraine was far from the defining issue of Trump's first week, as he issued executive order after executive order related to immigration, the environment, gender, and other domestic issues. He made no mention of either Ukraine or Russia in his inauguration speech, focusing instead on Panama and China as foreign adversaries that the US should be concerned about. Members of his team have given non-committal, broad answers about Trump's next steps, with newly minted Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that the U.S. will seek to create a sustainable peace in Ukraine and restore stability, with zero indication of what he expects from either side in order to achieve it. Elise Stefanik, Trump's nominee for United Nations ambassador, said on Tuesday that Trump will need maximum flexibility in order to end the war. She followed it up with, "I believe that peace through strength is our strongest deterrence," echoing a phrase from Trump's inauguration speech. Peace through strength is a quote often attributed to Cold War-era President Ronald Reagan, although it almost certainly predates him. Trump himself has said on social media and in interviews this week that the war needs to end immediately for the benefit of both sides, that Ukraine is ready for peace, but also bears responsibility for the war happening in the first place, and that he has always had and hopes to maintain a good relationship with Vladimir Putin, while also warning that Russia rejecting peace talks will lead to increased sanctions, tariffs, and taxes on Russian exports. When posting on Truth Social about the prospect of introducing harsher sanctions, Trump said that we can end the war the hard way or the easy way, but the easy way is always better. In short, we still don't really have a clue what his plan is, or what his definition of a successful peace deal looks like. Following the post, Putin has signaled willingness to speak with Trump as soon as possible, but the Kremlin has continued to reject all suggestions of concessions that could end the war, and stated this week that the deployment of NATO peacekeeping forces to Ukraine after a ceasefire would constitute an unacceptable level of escalation in Russia's eyes. President Zelensky said on Friday that Putin is attempting to manipulate Trump with his praise and outward willingness to meet. Zelensky said he was confident, however, that no Russian manipulations will succeed anymore. At the Kyiv Independent, reader contributions are our main source of revenue. Shows like Ukraine This Week are only made possible by viewers like you. If you'd like to get more involved in the Kyiv Independent community, we have several membership tiers that give you access to our Discord community, exclusive content, discounts on our merch, Q&As with our staff, moderated Ukrainian language lessons, and more. We have an active group of readers who have built a relationship with our newsroom and with each other, and we'd love to have you along. There will be a link to our membership page in the description below. I'd also like to thank everyone who donates directly via YouTube. Your support is greatly appreciated. It's Oscar season, and for the second year in a row, a Ukrainian film is nominated for Best Documentary Feature. Ukrainian journalist Mstislav Chernov's 20 Days in Mariupol won the category last year and remains one of the most widely recognizable accounts of the early days of the full-scale invasion. This year's nominee is called Porcelain War. It gives viewers a glimpse into the lives of 3 artists from Kyiv, whose home lies near the front lines of fighting, but who nonetheless decide to stay behind and fight Russia's war with art and guns. There's a huge visual contrast between the cute and detailed tiny porcelain figurines they make and the destruction around them. In following these artists, the film explores what it means to be a civilian-turned-soldier and what it means to preserve culture and soul in the face of violence. The movie's tagline is that Ukraine is like porcelain, easy to break, but hard to destroy. There's another nominee in the Oscar lineup that's a little harder to stomach. Honora is an American comedy drama that follows a young woman from Brooklyn who impulsively marries the spoiled child of a Russian oligarch. One of its cast members is nominated for Best Supporting Actor. The problem? That actor, Yura Borisov, is indeed Russian. What's more, there are several other recognizable Russian actors in this cast. Okay, so why make actors' nationality into a political thing? Aren't they just doing their job? Is there any reason to think that these individuals adhere to the authoritarian ideology of their government? Well, let's start with our Oscar nominee, Yura Borisov. Borisov honed his acting skills in Kremlin propaganda movies like AK-47, which was partially filmed in Ukraine's Crimea, after Russia invaded and annexed it. Entering Crimea from Russian territory is illegal. Borisov has never spoken out about Russia's war of aggression, which has killed tens of thousands of people, including at least 12,000 civilians. He continues to live in Moscow, and in an interview he described appearing in Anora as being akin to an Olympic win for Russia. Likewise, another lead in the movie is Mark Eidelstein, a 22-year-old Russian actor who was a 2018 finalist in Russia's national competition for young orators. The final round of that competition was held at Artek, a summer camp for kids in, you guessed it, occupied Crimea. Eidelstein went on to attend the Moscow Art Theater School, graduating over a year after the full-scale invasion started. Yet another of the film's actors, Alexei Serebryakov, starred in the 2014 Russian movie Leviathan, whose plot was considered by many to be a direct protest against the Russian state. Serebryakov actually moved to Canada in the 2010s, but then moved back to Russia just before the full-scale invasion, saying that the move to Canada had only been for his children's education and never intended to be permanent. He's stayed in Russia and continued acting in Russian movies and television after the full-scale invasion. Although he's considered something of a dissident in the Russian movie world, his position seems to mirror that of most of the Russian opposition. In 2018, he told RIA Novosti that he is a patriot of Russia, no less than those who shout about it. My point here is that it's not a crime to be born in Russia or a crime to act in movies in foreign countries. It's that the cast of this particular movie is made up of Russian actors who proudly represent their country while uniformly refusing to condemn the brutal war it's raging. These are actors who rose to fame in the Russian movie scene before breaking out internationally, something that tends not to happen without the Kremlin's blessing. Remember, it's an authoritarian state with a monopoly on its media. These are Russians who can travel the world, who have access to uncensored information and resources, and still choose to stay on Russia's side. That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. Your support is what allows us to bring you independent, unbiased news about Russia's invasion, which we are committed to doing no matter how much uncertainty the world faces. If you'd like to become a member of the Kyiv Independent community, please visit the link in the description below. I'll see you next week.